Hi guys, and welcome back to the channel. So today we're going to be testing ESCs, and these ESCs I've previously tested on the channel, but I thought it'd be kind of interesting to get the cheapest ESCs for around the $10 range and which one's the best. Now some of you might be on a budget, some of you just might have an ESC fry and you don't have full-blown 16 bucks to replace all of them, or yours is just not in stock anymore, so that could be a little issue. So what I want to do is I want to go ahead and revisit these ESCs. Now what we're going to do today is we're going to do something slightly different than usual. Now we will do the regular noise testing that we're used to, which is, we're going to call that raw noise testing. Raw noise testing means that you just connect an ESC, you basically run the tests listening on the oscilloscope. Now when you add a flight controller and you add a VTX, what happens is the capacitance and the resistance of the components you're adding changes the overall noise in the system, because some components can just reduce that noise through their capacitors, or just the resistance could possibly increase noise. These variables change dramatically from component to component. So what we will do is we'll start with a baseline of raw noise testing. We're also going to test noise on specific throttle levels. Now I was never able to do this before I got the workshop, but now I'm able to do it, so that's what we're going to be doing today. Now you might say, why didn't I add the new Emax bullet? It's as you notice, it's all Xt60 ESCs. Bill, hell yes. And why didn't I add the DYS XSD30M V2s? Well, because to be honest, there's really no point to buying these, because these are $16, and the DYS Aria and the Tico 32 ESCs are 16 bucks, and they just annihilate everything here. So this is why I'm going for the cheapest Gt60 ESCs here. These are the ones I have currently, and I thought, what the heck, let's give it a shot. So enough talking, let me set up and let's get started, guys. Emax bullet, test 1. Alright guys, so what just happened here? Now we just ran a test on the Emax bullet, and what I've done is I've set up a script to run a specific throttle levels for a second. So here, starting here, we have which is a 10% throttle, then it jumps to 25% throttle, and then it jumps to 50% throttle, then 75, and then 100% throttle. Now as you can see here, around 75% throttle, it just had a ton load of noise. So let's go ahead and zoom in. Now some things you need to take note of. Each square is 5 volts. So let's just center this here. We're going to center this line, which is the basically the not noisy voltage on the line below. So let's just go ahead and do that. All right. So that's perfect. It was 16.8 full battery. All right. So as you can see here, before we zoom in, so each square is 5 volts. So this to here is 5 volt, and then to here that's 10 volts. So you can see there's a 10 volt jump and basically a 8 volt dip kind of thing going on here. So this is just crazy right there. So again, let's go ahead and take a zoom at the 10% throttle here. This is basically kind of like to warm up the motor, and that's why I set up that 10% throttle. So let's just go ahead and zoom. It looks okay. It's not bad. It's around let's just see, about a 1 volt. Let's see the amplitude. Yeah, it's about a 1.3 volt 1 volt voltage spike, voltage drop. So it's really nothing. This is 10% throttle, so it runs clean on 10% throttle here. And the motor I'm using is the Emax 2205S. So on transitions, as you can see, you get these very nasty spikes here. So we're just going to go ahead and ignore those right now until I go into more detail. Let's just go for the static basically. So this is 25% throttle here, and if we zoom in quite a bit here, it seems okay. I mean, I don't see any problems here, and it's within 2 volts basically, or 3 volts, because each square is 5 volts up and down. So maybe that's like 2 volts down and 2 volts up. So the maximum voltage spike on 25% throttle was 19.6. This was the maximum voltage spike. And the voltage drop was, we could see it right about, well, this is calculating all wrong right now. So yeah, it's not a very bad problem here. This is 25% throttle. Now when we move up the throttle, that's when we start seeing the problems here. So let's just go ahead and zoom back out, and let's bring in, this is 50% throttle now. Now this is becoming pretty bad. This is 5 volt up and down, around about 4 volts voltage drop, and around 4 volts voltage spike on 50% throttle. So as you can see, it's increasing, and this 75% throttle is where we see the most amount of noise. It's just insane here. So let's just see here. So here we do have, let's just go ahead and do this. Give it a second. All right, so here's a bad spike right there. Let's zoom in on this one right there. As you can see, that's a pretty nasty one right there. That's a 5, 10, that's a 12 volt voltage spike. So that's pretty scary right there. As you can see here, we have a lot of those. So if we zoom out here, it's pretty big here, these voltage spikes. This is what causes issues here. However, we're going to go ahead, I've never done this test on the other ESCs, so we're going to go ahead and see how that's also going to work. And as you can see, at 100% throttle, it's almost the cleanest, we could kind of say. Let's just go ahead and take one zoom here. And then obviously towards, yeah, it's the cleanest at full throttle. So that's something to take note of right there. The voltage drop is a lot larger than the voltage spike here at full throttle. So, you know, 75%, I would say anywhere between possibly 60 to 80%. It's the most noisy on the Emax Bullet. It's very noisy. And this is, you know, it doesn't seem good. And from the testing and from what I've seen before, it's not that good. So let's go ahead and test out the other ESCs. The next ESC on the list is going to be the Racerstar 35 amp MS Series. So let's go ahead and set that up and run this test on it. Racerstar MS Series, throttle noise. Alright guys, so this is the Racerstar 35 amp MS Series test. And right now, just looking at it, I think it looks a little bit worse than the Emax Bullet, but we have to wait until we finish everything, and then we can go ahead and check it out. But let's go ahead and take a look here. So another thing that I'm also going to be doing, which is very important, as you can see, well, you can't see, I have a USB here. I will be, I've taken screenshots of this, but you know, you won't be able to zoom in, but you can see the readings, you know, on the Excel sheet. I'm going to have an Excel sheet for this, like I promised. And I will build upon this on everything we do. Maybe I'll do groups of, you know, under $10 or something. I put a price. You could also filter through them yourself. So I'll build this comprehensive list of the ESCs in this type of testing. And also, we'll do the raw noise testing that I used to do. But this one is a little bit more well documented. It's a lot better. This is how I've always wanted to do it. And also I will be adding the other stress testing noise that I usually do also in that Excel sheet. But currently we're going to start off with this. I will be coming with the next episode also. So yeah, so just make sure you check the links down below. All right, so let's take a look here. So as we can see here from the reading, we have a 32 volt, where is it? Hold on. 32 volt voltage spike, which is pretty insane actually. And 8.4 voltage drop. That's just crazy. So this part here, I kind of didn't catch it on time to stop the recording. This is 10% throttle. We don't really look at it. I just put that, you know, just to make sure everything is running good. Nothing, you know, short circuits. I don't want it to go full throttle right away. So this is 25% throttle. And let's go ahead and just, you know, zoom here a little bit. All right, let's just take a look at 25% throttle. 25% throttle looks clean. There is no weird hiccups, so that's very good. That's kind of to be expected, kind of. So as you can see here, it's still 5 volts per division. So it's about a 2.5 volt voltage spike and a voltage drop. So it's what we call it a 5 volt amplitude. So that's very good right there. However, you're going to be rarely flying on 25% throttle anyways. So 50% throttle, you start seeing noise here. As you can see, those little weird lines. So this whole thing is pretty noisy actually. So this is around 5 volt, 10 volt amplitude, we could say. It's passing the, you know, over 5 volts voltage spike. So it's going up to 6 volt voltage spikes here every now and then. But as you could say, it's a static 4 volt voltage spike right there. And here around a 4 volt voltage drop also. So once we hit 75%, it just gets terrible, really. But I think it looked better than the Emax bullet. I'm not sure. We're going to check all of them together once we're done with all of them. We'll go over everything. But over here, as you can see, we have a full-blown 5-volt voltage drop and a full-blown 5-volt plus voltage spike. It's even reaching up to 12 volts, 12.5 volts right there. This is probably around 14 volts right there. That's just pretty insane right there. Let's just take a quick look here. That's just pretty. Look at those. So yeah, yeah. So this is where we would expect noise right there. Also, as you know, a specific throttle level, sometimes your OSD disappears. This is why. This is what's really going on in the background. For some reason, 100% throttle on this ESC seems a lot more noisy. I don't have it off the back of my mind how the Emax bullet was, but it definitely seems noisier than the 50% throttle, which was not the case with the Emax bullet. So that's pretty interesting, actually. So let's just take a look. This is 100% throttle right here. We can see it's around a 4-volt voltage spike right there from 16.8, and on the voltage drop it's a little bit, it's maybe we could say 6 volt on the voltage drop. But you know, overall the 75% throttle was the noisiest right there. It was actually very noisy. So that's, you know, it's gonna be between, you know, like 60 to possibly 80% throttle is where this ESC is gonna run the noisiest. So maybe all of them do, but I don't know. I just started off with the worst two. So yeah, so I just saved a screenshot. I will be putting this in the Excel sheet. So let's go ahead and move to the next ESC, which will be the DYS DS30 amp ESC. So let's go ahead and hook this guy up and get him tested. DYS DS30 amp. Alright guys, so this is the DYS DS30 amp ESC, and as you could tell, it's noticeably better, like noticeably better. This is at 75% throttle. It just peaked 5 volts, like maximum of 9 volts right there at the beginning. But right now we're just ignoring these spikes because we're getting to that later on. Maybe I'll do a second episode because this video might be a bit too long here. Now, as you can see here, this is the 10% throttle, 25% throttle, 50%, 75%, and 100. So 25, 50, 75, 100% throttle. Look how clean 100% throttle is. It's obviously lower because we're going full throttle here. And seems a lot better. This is so far the best cheap ESC that we've possibly tested. So let's go ahead and just take a closer look here. So there's really no need to take a look at the 10% throttle. Let's take a look at the 25% throttle here. It's a 5 volt amplitude, which means 2.5 volts drop and a 2.5 volt spike. So it looks good, nothing weird. We don't see any weird traces or anything. So it seems pretty nice. So I'm noticing everything is running the noisiest between 70 to, I would say, 80% throttle. So as you can see here, this is the 75% throttle range, and we do have voltage spikes up to 7 volts here, we would say, because that's like 5 volts, but it's not like a full-blown 5 volts like the other one plus. As you can see here, it's around 4 volts, and it's getting these spikes that would jump up to 6 and 7 volts, but it's fairly consistent. Nothing really weird's going on. It is kind of noisy. I mean, all ESCs are noisy. Everything's going to be noisy, but this is dramatically better than everything we've seen so far. And the 100% throttle, that's just clean right there. The voltage spike, there was no voltage spike. It was just basically a drop. Well, let's just center this and we'll figure out exactly. All right, right there. So yeah, it's that's very good actually. That's very clean. That's just a 4 volt voltage drop. That's it basically. It's just, you know, the AC current going through. Overall looks very nice, looks very static, looks very good actually. I really like this one. So we will go ahead and go over everything in a little bit. So let's go ahead and test the last one, which is the Racerstar V2 30 amp V2. This is a brand new one, so I'm gonna go ahead and set this up and we're gonna start testing it right now. Racerstar 30 amp V2 test. Alright guys, so how did the Racerstar 30 amp V2 do here? It actually did pretty good. From just looking at it like this, I still have not looked at all the data together, so we're gonna go ahead and check that out. But let's just quickly just take a nice little look at it before we go ahead. So this is 10% throttle again, 25, 50, 75, and 100. So the 100 looks clean. All of them around the 75 area, it gets the noisiest. The DS was a lot noticeably less noisy at that, upper third throttle level, as you can see here. So I think this is where most of the issues are probably happen on ESCs, especially the Gt60 ESCs. So we're taking a look at here right now at the 75% throttle. It is, we can say, roughly 10 volt amplitude. You have these little nasty spikes there, so those are possibly like little out of phase moments right here. Probably doesn't run the most efficient here. As you can see, it runs more efficiently there than here. Here it's just all over the place. So let's just take a little zoom here. Let's zoom in on a spike. Let's just zoom in on this spike here. So this is one of the largest spikes on the 75% throttle. It's around 5 volts. We could say around 7.5, 8 volt spike right there. But the average is around, we could say 4.5, I think. Let's just take a look here. So we just put more data into it there. Yeah, we could say 4.5, 5 volts was the voltage spike. Same thing goes for the voltage drop. We could say 4.5 for the voltage drop. So this is the noisiest part right there. Overall, it did pretty good. I think this came the second best. I think the DS came the first on this testing, but this shows that it's still pretty good ESC. However, I will be building this into a pretty detailed Excel sheet, and it's going to be updated every time I do tests. I will add these tests in. Later on, we'll also do the FPV footage, and we'll also take a look at that. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and look at the data, and based upon the data, come back, show all 4 pictures basically that I took of this, and we could take a look at them all side by side and see how everything came out to be, and we could take it from there. So, alright guys, give me a moment and I will be back. Alright guys, so the results are in, and as you can see, I've taken a screenshot of every single test we've done. The top left is the Emax bullet, the top right is the Racerstar MS Series, which is the purple one. It's the 30 amp version, so it changes from every amperage. So this is the 30 amp version, the DYS DS 30 amp version, and the bottom right is the Racerstar, the green one, the Racerstar V2s. This is the 30 amp version also. So here's the testing results, and just quickly glancing over, you could already tell that the bullet and the MS Series are just the worst. Those top 2 right there. Now let's see which one's the worst of them all here. So I was always expecting, and I always thought the bullet was worse than the Racerstar, but it seems yes and no, which is kind of weird. So let's take a look here. 10%, the bullet does fine, and so does the Racerstar MS Series. I had to cut it. I didn't catch it on time. That's why it just paused right there. So forget that. Anyways, we don't really care about the 10%. So let's go to the 25%, which is, they're almost identical. Doesn't really matter. 50%, pretty much almost identical. We have a little higher voltage spikes right there on the Racerstar MS, as you can see here. And the bullet versus the MS Series here on the 75%. This is where the MS outdoes the bullet, because the bullet here has a lot of these hiccups, a lot of these voltage spikes. This is not very efficient at all. This is basically like an engine backfiring at you. That's what a voltage spike and inrush of current. This is what blows components and catches things on fire. So this is not very good to see here. Now, I'm not saying this is on a static 75% throttle. It could be anywhere between 70 to 90% throttle. So take that into consideration. Now, if we take a look at full throttle, which is these guys right there, as you can see here, it's pretty noisy, and that's very inefficient. That is very inefficient. So you're not getting the full power of your motor, and you're probably losing a lot of amperage that goes wasted. So you want to sacrifice. There's no reason to sacrifice the weight if you're not even getting the full power of your motor. So take that into consideration. So this is very inefficient, but the MS Series just absolutely does worse. This is hella more inefficient. So these two are just a big no-nos. I mean, the bullet is a little bit better at full throttle, but they're still both absolutely terrible. Now let's jump to the DYSDS and the V2. Obviously, they're the clear winners here in these testing. So the DYSDS is cheaper than the V2s, if I remember correctly. These are like $10.50, the DYSDS. However, you need to take something into consideration with these cheap ESCs. Do not pair this with a 2306 motor, or you'll possibly burn it out. Trust me, you will burn it out. You burn out the ESC, possibly even burn out the motor. So this, 2205 class, maybe 2207, not high kV, just like a 2300 kV, it'll do just fine. So take that into consideration when you get these cheap ESCs. So let's take a look here. Now the Racerstar V2 versus DYSDS. So it's just crazy because they're almost absolutely identical, except this hiccup here on the V2. Now, if we take a look at the DS is fine. Full throttle seems pretty efficient. However, in these 4 ESCs at the current moment of time, so in the same price category, if you might say, they're both performing absolutely almost identical, except on the changing. When we change the changing phase between speeds, you can see there's this huge voltage spike right there. But we're getting to that later on in different videos. So 5, 10. That's like what, 18 volts, I think. No, sorry. That's like 14 volts. Yeah, 14 volt spike right there. That's just crazy. And here we had around 11, I think. Yeah, 11 volt. But forget these don't really matter right now. These here would be cut dramatically if there was good filtration on the ESC. So yeah, so as you can tell here, the DYS seems to have slightly a bit more better filtration on the high voltage spikes than the V2s. But overall, the consistency, they're both almost exactly identical. And except this little hiccup here. Now this hiccup is kind of interesting because I put a note on the Racerstar V2 here. It was a lost test, and when I went to basically start the test, it did not initialize fast enough, and it just went all weird. That's why I set that 10% throttle just in case. So what I had to do is I had to recalibrate it like 3 times just to double check. And I have this setting which is basically how long it should wait till the ESC initializes. I used to have it set 4 seconds for each ESC. So basically, initializes it it gives it 4 seconds, and then it gives it the command to do a throttle level. Here I had it up the ESC initialization time to 7 seconds for some reason. I don't know why yet, but I will be looking into this. I have this noted down, so we will take a closer look into this and why is this happening later on. So the overall clear winner for me at the current moment of time is the V2. Seems good. I've had it. It's on one of my first builds, and it's still absolutely reliable. The DYSDS, I've done no real world testing on it, but it seems good from the testing here. Now, like I mentioned before, do not stick a 2306. You can possibly get away with it. However, I've managed to burn some of these cheap, good $10 ESCs before on 2306 motors, the Emax 2750 kV, for example. So just take that into consideration. You don't want to burn it out right away. It could possibly absolutely work, but this is just from my personal experience. You could do as you want. This is what's happened with me, and I just want to let you guys know. So all this data will be available in Excel sheets. I will begin the Excel sheet right now, and hopefully by the time the video is uploaded and edited, I'll have the Excel sheet down in the link description below. And well, that's it, guys. I really hope you guys enjoyed the video. This is the first video I have done in the workshop, so I'm so excited. I'm so happy, and I have more content to come. Huge thank you to my Patreons and my YouTube subscribers. If it wasn't for you, I wouldn't be here. And I would really like to ask if you could also help in joining the mission, join my Patreon to enable me to do a lot more and to keep this going the same way it is. Any help goes an absolutely long way. And if you can't donate on Patreon, you could also always use the affiliate links down there. They do support the channel. You don't have to purchase the same thing in the link. You could just press the link if you wanted to support me, and then just make your purchase. That gives me a couple cents, but it all adds up, and I can bring in more components, and I can do more testing like this. And every little helps from anywhere. And if you want to do some private donations, contact me on PayPal. Anything goes a long way. And I really hope you guys enjoyed the video. So if you guys have any questions or any suggestions, feel free to let me know. And don't miss the giveaway for next month on the Patreon. And I will see you next time. See you guys. Take care.